YouTube and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about teenagers. Italian teenagers versus American teenagers. After coming in contact with both Italian teenagers and American teenagers, I've noticed a few key differences. Italian teenagers are much more socially developed. I think it's because since Italian teenagers' parents give them a lot of freedom, teenagers have a tendency to rebel, right? I mean, they're going to do exactly what their parents tell them not to do, right? So when your parents are telling you, stay inside, be good, behave yourself, of course you're gonna not stay inside, you're not gonna be good, and you're not gonna behave yourself. I noticed with Italian teenagers that the ones that usually go out and get like wasted and stuff like that are the 13-year-olds to about like 15 or 16. About 15 or 16, you're usually in like liceo or high school and they start to like pay more attention to their grades, and then you'll never really see them go out because they're in their houses studying. They don't go out and essentially take all these risks to ruin their lives. As a result of the fact that they're allowed to go out, they're allowed to drink, they're allowed to be not even independent, but just allowed to do what they want from a young age. By the time that they're 18, drinking isn't this crazy hidden thing that they have to like go out and binge in doing. You know, they're used to it. They know how much they can drink before they actually get drunk. They're a lot more responsible with it, and I just feel like in this sense Italian teenagers are so much more mature than American teenagers. Parents here are super laid back in general, and so I feel like you can really see it reflected in the kids, and for the most part they're more socially developed than American kids. I think that American kids and teenagers are more risk takers because we are way more sheltered than Italian kids. We're not allowed to drink until 21. I mean, you're not allowed to really do anything in America. Since you're not allowed to drink, there's no such thing as aperitivo for us. There's no going to the discoteca. Some clubs are 18 and up, but those clubs usually suck, so you don't really go to the clubs. Half the things that Italian kids and teenagers do to unwind and have fun, we aren't allowed to do in America. And like I said, teenagers will always go against their parents and do exactly what they're told not to do. So since you're told you're not allowed to drink, what are you gonna do? You're gonna drink so much that you black out and you can't even remember what happened. We live in Connecticut, right? So in the middle of the wilderness. When I was in high school, they would have like these bonfires and parties in the woods where everybody would meet up in some desolate location in the woods and just drink and talk and listen to music, and that was like the American party. Everything is just so hidden, and it develops this mindset that I don't see here. In Italy, drinking, since you're so used to it and it's more of a social behavior, it becomes a social drink. You drink in a social way. But in America, since we're drinking to get drunk, it's different. I feel like the reason why we have such a high teen pregnancy rate, we have such a high drug usage rate in America, and I'm not just talking about weed. If you go onto an American college campus, you're gonna know which person has the Adderall, which person has the Ritalin. American teenagers are much more likely to engage in risky behavior. Unless you live in a big city, like I said before, in my city of Norwich, there was nothing really for anybody to do. I mean, okay, you could go walk around the marina or you could go to the mall, but there wasn't a lot to do. And so, since kids are bored, what are they gonna do? They're gonna have sex and they're gonna do drugs. And that is what you see happening today. But the point that I'm trying to make is, whereas Italian teenagers are much more socially developed, they're more mature in these kinds of situations, they make better decisions in these kinds of situations, American kids end up being huge risk takers, and I think that a huge part of it is because of boredom and just excessive restrictions that are put on them by parents. I think that Italian students are a lot more cultured. In most Italian schools, you are required to study philosophy. If you study history, you're not going to study just like, you know, Italian history, you'll study world history. In America, we study other people's history, but it's always with America in the center. It's always in a context of America. Notice that I've had really good history teachers that try to be impartial and try to give it to you like it is, but even that, you can't get past, you know, what it says in the syllabus. And what it says in the syllabus is very Americentric. In a way, Americans, I've said it before, live in a kind of bubble and they don't know what's really going on out there in the world, whereas in Europe it's much more international. Because of like things like the EU, you're forced to think of things in a context outside of your own country. You have to think about what's going on in France. You have to think about what's going on in the UK. They study a bit of American history in Europe. I mean, I didn't study Italian history outside of my Italian class, but I guess everybody here knows some basics about American history, which is kind of weird, but whatever. They're way more cultured. They study more things about art, they study more things about literature here, they study those things very in depth, whereas unfortunately in America, those things are being deemed as useless. They're trying to put a lot more emphasis on science, computers, and technology, which is fine. Those things are necessary. But I think that by diminishing the importance that we have on civics and the humanities, it really dumbs down the population. You need culture. You need it just as much as you need science and math. In Italy, they preserve it a lot better than they do in America. And as a result, the teenagers know a little bit about that art piece. They know a little bit about that writer. They know a little bit about that social movement, about that country, about this and that, and what's going on in the world. Whereas an American is much more likely to be living in their bubble. On the other hand, where Italian teenagers are much more cultured, I'd say American teenagers are much more diverse. It's the pro and the con to living in America is diversity. We do have a lot of racial issues, a lot of ethnic tensions in America, but I do have to say that Americans themselves aren't racist. Americans aren't inherent racist. It's the system. There are laws that were put in place hundreds of years ago that were not really renewed for the new society, and so you have a system that is inherently racist. So you can have a white person that really doesn't know there's anything wrong with the system, because for them nothing bad has ever happened to them. And then you have a black person, they don't even know that the system is flawed, because in school they're teaching them, oh, equality, oh, justice, you're protected, but then they see that they're treated a different way. It's a clash of what should happen and what is happening, and then you get confused. So those are the reasons really for the ethnic and racial tensions. It's not that Americans don't like each other. I think that Americans are very open to other cultures. We're surrounded by them from our whole entire lives. I have no fear of somebody that is different from me, and I respect everybody's culture, and I feel like that is because I come from America. In America, different is cool. Different is how things are supposed to be, you know? Whereas I feel like in Italy, okay, in a big city like Milan, maybe you'll have less of a problem with this. Maybe your kid will go to a really diverse school. Mind you, Enrico says he doesn't want to raise kids in Milan, but whatever. Maybe you'll have more diversity there. But in a much smaller town like Fano, everybody's gonna pretty much be Italian. Everybody's gonna have like usually the same skin color. And when you grow up in a culture like that, especially for kids, especially for teenagers, it makes it seem like everything that's different from you is bad. Things that are different from Italian will automatically be seen as the other, weird, bad, and I feel like that's very prevalent here, and that's kind of a thing that I hope will change. As Italy becomes more multicultural, as Italy becomes more diverse, they should like hopefully adapt to the changes, but as of right now, diversity isn't really a thing here. I think that American teenagers are much more like open-minded in terms of if you're different, in terms of if you're a different ethnicity, if you're a different sexual orientation, if you're a different anything. For the most part in America, you're still going to be accepted. American teenagers are way more independent than Italian teenagers. I've kind of touched on this in the how old are you if you're in Italy versus whatever. American teenagers are like told from a very early age that, you know, if you want to achieve the American dream, you have to work hard, you have to achieve, you have to do this, this, and that so that you can be successful. We have a very you-oriented culture in America. Individualism is a very American thing, and so it pushes American kids to go out and be the best individual that they can be, which sometimes can be a problem because there's not enough of stress in America, I think, on society and bettering society. Everybody's really into bettering themselves. But if you're looking at it from like, I don't know, a professional perspective or again, an individual perspective, I feel like Americans are more like put together individuals. They will start working earlier, they starting their own lives earlier, and I really don't see that as a bad thing. No, I don't think it's a great thing to be considered a kid when you're 30 or 40. I do think that there needs to be a time where you can take care of yourself, and then it will be good. I mean, if I am financially stable and independent at 20, that means I can spend my whole 20s like traveling the world, experiencing new things, doing things that I want to do because I'm independent. Whereas if you're depending on your family, if you're like completely attached to other people around you, you won't be able to have that same kind of freedom. And so I do think that it's a good thing that American teenagers tend to be more independent, more go-getter, more ready to take risks. Like one of my other points was that Americans are more risk takers. This would be, I guess, like the good side of being a risk taker. Italian teenagers are way cooler and way more stylish than American teenagers. I've got to say, something about growing up in Italy, it's part of the culture. Being well dressed and presentable is ingrained in Italian culture and society. Mothers will dress their children well from the moment they get out of the womb, and they grow up looking good. I mean, even if you have an Italian that doesn't care about style at all, for example, Enrico, you'll notice that he still looks better than the people that don't care about style at all in America. It's weird. They're just effortlessly more stylish and cooler than us. I remember when the Italians came to my school for the exchange, and everybody was just like taken aback by the way they dressed, and as soon as the Italians left, all the Americans started dressing exactly like they dressed, with the light blue jeans and the white Converse and the Risoltini. Everybody was wearing that once the Italians left, with the blazers. Oh my god, it was laughable. It was laughable, but I could totally get it. I mean, who doesn't want to be cool and stylish like an Italian? So yeah, what do you guys think about this discussion? Do you think that I got anything wrong? Do you have anything to add to what I say? Are you a teenager in America or a teenager in Italy watching? Do you agree with me? Let me know in the comment section below. Let's have a discussion about it. I hope that you guys liked this video. I hope that you found it entertaining. And as always, I will see you guys in my next one.